Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Andrew Chanin, CEO of ProcureAM, to discuss UFO, the world's first global ETF launched in April 2019 to give investors pure play access to the expanding space industry. Andrew, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thrilled to be back. Thanks for having me.
You got it. And let's start with overarching themes right now. What are the three key trends driving the space industry now?
So one is absolutely the lowering cost of sending things to outer space. And this is being brought about by reusable rockets. So companies like SpaceX are creating technologies that are allowing us to send things into outer space significantly cheaper than ever before, whether that be parts and pieces, equipment and hardware, or even people themselves. And that's freeing up budgets for agencies like NASA to spend more on some of their other endeavors. And it's allowing companies that have never sent things into outer space before just try to do it because the barriers are now so much lower. Another one is on the geopolitical front. Space Race 2.0 is here and it doesn't seem like it is going anywhere. And what we're noticing is that just like any other battle or frontier, that you need to spend if you want to compete. And so dominance is on the mind of Americans, Russians, Chinese, and beyond. So we're seeing a real increased amount being spent on space from a military and defense standpoint. Lastly, things like the coronavirus and the pandemic have forced the space economy to continue to grow in areas of connectability. Communications being one of the largest segments of the space economy, looks like that is an area that could possibly be here to stay as we do more things remotely. People are connecting around the world and beyond. Different technologies like blockchain, connected devices, Internet of Things, 5G, cloud computing are all becoming more reliant upon space-based assets. And so we're looking at that as being another area of growth over the last couple of years for the space industry.
And that's what's really interesting and what I like about UFO, because it's not typical with what you think might be space type of investments, right? So tell us what UFO tracks and what you're focused on.
UFO tracks the S Network Space Index. And what that index looks to do is find companies that are heavily involved in the space industry with a focus on pure play companies. So those are companies that are deriving a majority of their revenue from space related business activities and services. And that represents at least 80% of the underlying index. But also realizing that some of these more diversified aerospace and defense names are major players and still drive a lot of revenue from these areas, but because they do have some other areas that aren't space focused, wanted to make room for it in the index without it overwhelming the significant weighting. So there's up to 20% of the underlying index is allowed to be in these aerospace and defense names, but these companies are doing things like launching, they're building rockets, they're building satellites, they're operating these satellites, and they're also connecting us here on Earth. So communications types of companies that are relying upon space-based systems, even end user types of products like a Garmin, which is helping enable GPS to help track things all around this planet.
And you're certainly seeing some growth in the fund. What are the assets under management now?
So we're over 130 million in assets. We crossed the 100 million mark a little bit earlier this year, which is fantastic, being that we launched with about 2.5 million in assets back in 2019.
Yeah, that growth really is quite incredible. And to wrap up here, Andrew, give us a hint of what some of the holdings are in UFO.
Yeah, so companies that people might be familiar with, like Virgin Galactic, some of those diversified aerospace and defense names like a Boeing and a Lockheed. But then we also have companies that most people don't have much exposure to. So we're talking about companies like Galat or L'Oreal or other kind of satellite companies and these communications companies, which you're not really finding in many portfolios. Iridium being another one of these names that many people aren't familiar with now, and Maxar, but they may be down the road.
All right, Andrew, great to see you as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you.